transactions. And here's what I want you to keep in mind when we talk about transactions, meaning when you're under contract. Getting your offer accepted is, yes, it's a big deal, but it's probably one of, even though it doesn't feel like it, it's one of your smaller hurdles to getting to the closing table. And so I want you very aware of, this is when the work starts. Ashley's in it right now. Ashley, share kind of what has been some of your surprises or challenges being, especially having two transactions with your clients buy sell.
Yeah, I think that's like exactly it. Like you get so excited because your offer gets accepted, especially like both of my transactions were like multiple offer situations. Like we got the one against 4 other offers, and then we had 5 come in on ours. So it's exciting and it's fun, but that part's not really the hard part. It's then after, because you've got kind of ebbs and flows of busy time.
Yes.
To where it's like you're go, doing a lot, and then it's kind of a lull. And so that's been just a learning curve, like learning, okay, so I'm just gonna like speed it up right now, and then I can sit back for a minute. But always keeping an eye on like that close date, because there's
All those timelines inside of the contract.
totally. So like I have like a printout where it's like all of my important dates
Good.
kind of lined up, like when do I need to do all kinds of different things. Title, that's been something that I've been like learning about a lot, because I think in the beginning you think like, oh, I just tell them that I want to close with them and that's it, and like that's not really it.
Yep.
There's more to it than that, and so that's been I think for me the hardest part is learning kind of the title process, because there's been 2 transactions going at the same time. And we're gonna use funds from the sale to fund the purchase. And so there's been a lot of back and forth and kind of a lot of cooks in the kitchen on that.
Yes.
And I think we're just like so close to being finished. Well, I want it to be tomorrow because we close on Tuesday.
Close on Tuesday?
Yeah. So
Now, I would have advised not to close on a Tuesday after a 3-day holiday.
yes,
And I know sometimes you can't.
there was no getting around it with our purchase.
I get that.
Yeah.
But I do want to plant this seed in everybody's head. The last day of the month and the first day of the month do not close on. And after a 3-day holiday, or here's what I would, if you have just Labor Day and Memorial Day, but then President's Day, but really Labor Day and Memorial Day. Don't close on that Friday before or that Tuesday after. Guess why? Look at how many people we have here today. That's what their offices look, that's what the lender's office looks like, that's what the title companies. So if something goes wrong, or you may not get your person who you've been working with all this time because they took the day off. So just keep this in mind. And the last day and the first day of the month are the busiest for lenders and title company. And again, things can fall through the cracks, and it just makes it more stressful for all the parties, that everything's going to go smoothly and that you can have their full attention if something goes wrong. Because I don't know if you've ever seen a title closer's office, but usually on the last day of the month especially, they will have stacks of paperwork for all of their closings. I mean, stacks. And they're just grabbing it and go to the next and grabbing it and go into the next. So keep this in mind as a best practice. Now, again, sometimes, like Ashley said, you're going to have to do it on a date that's not ideal, but have awareness. And I would even be asking the people I work with, are you going to be in on Tuesday with your closer? And the lender, are you going to be in on Tuesday? Are they taking a longer holiday? And if you're not, who's the person who I would contact while you're gone? Be proactive. That when you're in this transaction process and the contract to close that we're going to go through in detail today, is you got to put on your project manager hat. And you have to take responsibility and control And that's hard when you don't yet know what you're doing, right? And you feel, here's how I felt as a new person. I felt like, oh, those title people know way more than I do. Oh, those lenders know way more than I do. I'll just be quiet and they're doing their job. Guess what? Some of them weren't. And it blew my mind. I was like, this is what you do for a living? And this is how well you do it? Whoa, I learned, just like you will learn, or you have been experiencing, that not all agents are created equal. Not all lenders are created equal. Not all title companies are created equal. I could just go down the line, inspectors, appraisers, all of that. So don't be surprised if you have to carry more water than you really think is fair. I was talking to an agent yesterday, and I said, sometimes when you're co-oping with an agent, there are times the most beautiful transactions are when it's 50-50 between the agents. You're both carrying the same amount of water through this transaction and working together while representing your clients. And you're keeping everybody on the same road, same direction, about the same speed. That's beautiful. But that's not going to be what happens all the time. Hark, there's going to be times where you're going to literally do 80% of the work between contract to close, and the other co-op agent's going to be MIA, or they're going to be so new and have no guidance that they don't know what they're doing, or they're just difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. Or there's times where, yeah, so, and you're going to think, why are they getting a commission? I'm doing all the freaking work. Well, it's going to be sometimes because you're the one who takes responsibility, puts on the project manager hat, takes it seriously, that you're checking on everything through this process to make sure it gets to the closing table. And without you doing it, there's a high likelihood it wouldn't get there. And that's another thing that you want to start looking for and learning about are where are the red flags in a transaction? Well, it's basically the areas in which a buyer can cancel. Inspections, red flag. You've got critical timelines that you must meet. And the deal can fall apart. Appraisal, the deal can fall apart. Financing for the buyer, that contingency, the deal can fall apart. And so if you are not talking even to say you're the listing agent, there's nothing wrong with you checking in with the buyer's lender. It feels weird, but there are times that we do that. Now, they might not tell you everything, but and you might not even know what to ask. So this is how, I learned. I thought, well, like I said, I thought they knew more. I thought the title people and lenders, good morning, Angel, knew more than I did. So what do I know to ask them? Here's what I learned to ask. I don't have to be an expert on their process, but I need to check in on such a regular basis. And I say to them, hey, I'm just checking in. Are we on task? Are we on schedule to close on May 31st or May 28th at 5 p.m.? Is there anything you need from me or my client or the other side? And how can I help? Does that make sense? That's how easy it can be. You don't have to know everything that happens in underwriting. You don't have to know everything they're doing to get the title commitment. You need to be checking in though, and you need to understand the timelines of when these things happen. And so that gets us to jumping right in to our class material of contract to close. So you cannot, this is a thing that all of you as agents have to understand. You really can't be timid about stepping up and stepping in. Sometimes nobody's gonna come to your rescue. It's gonna be you who causes the rescue. and gets to the finish line. So I want you all aware that this isn't where ask questions. If you're not sure, make sure you're asking really good questions, or especially in this process, here's what I'm going to tell you. You should be saying to your coach or to Linda, I'm under contract, what's next? Now, you better have printed up my power tool of contract to close, and you better have reviewed it so you have a general idea. But if something doesn't make sense or you still have a question about it, then ask questions. Don't wait for things to happen. And if you don't understand, if you're dealing with like new construction, it's so different than residential. So there's going to be different things that happen. And say, I'm not sure what happens in inspections. What's that look like with new construction? We have to be curious and ask a lot of questions and say, maybe to a coach, what is it I don't know? I've looked over all of this. Where are the surprises? What could happen? Or this is happening in my transaction. What do I have to look out for at this point in time? Does that make sense? So one of the things you have to understand, we actually have rules in this office of when you have to submit your paperwork in Command to compliance. And that is within 5 business days of the contract effective date. You've got to have it in to Command, whatever paperwork you have at that time. So what I didn't understand as a new person, because remember, Kristen had like Zip and Angel, we had like no training. And so I didn't turn in my file right away because I hadn't done inspections and these other things. And I thought I needed to give them a complete package. And that's not how it goes. You get in your paperwork as soon as possible, and then you're just continuing to add whatever goes on in the transaction going forward till you hit closing.
You just keep resubmitting.
Keep resubmitting, keep just go putting it in. And you're doing the same thing with all the other parties, the lender and the title company. So just think of my submission of documents as ongoing because the documents will be ongoing through that transaction. So don't be naive like I was. And I got in trouble and they're like fussing at me. And I was like, how was I supposed to know?
So Kristen, what paperwork would that be?
Sale contract, the seller's disclosure, anything that went in with your offer that they all signed, that's what goes in first. Your buyer's agency, your listing agreement should have already been submitted. We don't require buyer's agencies to be submitted to compliance early. It's not a bad idea. But listing agreements are the same. We have to have them in the office or in compliance within 5 days.
There's like a section, once you have a record going, and it shows you exactly what you have to upload. There's like a space for it, so it's super intuitive and it walks you.
Yeah, it's really nice that it tells you. And then if you push it up to compliance, they may say, hey, you're missing this or this or this. So,
Comes back for
You
you.
done your coach contract.
Yeah.
Us coaches, we probably do that first step.
Yeah.
So you don't do it alone.
yeah,
When you-
because it's kind of confusing to just get comfortable. Now, also, that's what Brett teaches on Wednesdays. That's what he's teaching you on Wednesdays. So the minute you go under contract or even before, go to his Wednesday class because he's teaching you transactions in Command and how to do all of that and negotiate, navigate it. But once you're under contract, it's great to go to that class several times while you're under contract so he can help you with that. The coaches can help you, but really you're to tap into what Brett is teaching on Wednesdays. Make sense? And document distribution. It is your job. I didn't know I was supposed to send the lender the contract. I guess I thought it would be magically delivered. I don't know. And if you don't get it to the title company, they will not deposit the EMD. They cannot deposit the EMD unless they have a copy of the sale contract.
So really, it says within 5 business days, but honestly, like, you need to do it immediately
Because it has to go a lot of places. You're the distributor of the paperwork to your client. Your clients need it. As soon as they sign it, Okay, here's something, you probably heard me say, I love and hate dot loop, love and hate it. I love it because it's so nice that you can get papers signed no matter where your clients are. And it's date stamped and it's clean, hasn't been through a fax machine 45 times, and it's just a piece of black paper. Those were, yeah, back in the day. Even scanned copies sometimes, will get degradation of the words and everything, of the copy. But what happens though is you assume that your clients are going to be comfortable navigating dot loop, and you have to share the documents with them after they're signed. And I would send them also a PDF. I'd put them in a PDF attachment after they have signed. They are to have from you all the documents that they sign. Do not assume that they can just go into your dot loop and find everything, because unless you've shared everything with them and reshared it, then they can't. So there's a little education curve on the dot loop with a lot of your clients, and it is to your disservice, and it is a liability risk for you if you are just sending stuff over and not explaining dot loop. Do you know what they see first when you send things over for signatures? The signature box. Some of them don't know how to get out of that and look at the document before they sign it, because it just comes up, sign, initial, sign, initial. So you have to be very careful that you're doing your job and getting those signed documents back to them. You cannot be the only person that has these documents. The office has to have them, the lender, the title company, the clients. Does it make sense? It's your responsibility to get those documents out in a timely manner. So like I said, this is when the hard work happens. Any questions about the timelines on the paperwork?
So the supply phase start as soon as the offer gets accepted?
On the effective date, the next full day. So because they might sign at 5:55 PM, we don't want to say that it's 24 hours from them. It's just the next full day. Starts day one. And that day one is also for your inspections and any other timelines in that contract. Good question. That is one of the most common misunderstandings. Delivery of earnest money. I'm gonna say it again because I've said it several times, but there's a difference between the delivery and the deposit. Licensed law school, probably one of the test questions could have been, what were the deadlines to deposit money in Kansas and Missouri, right, Ellie? Yep. But they don't talk about delivery. Delivery is in the contract. It is not a law. Deposit is a law. Okay, so the delivery, unless it's otherwise stated in the contract, it must be delivered within 2 calendar days of the effective date. And here's the warning, and you better take it seriously. If it is not delivered or wired in that time frame, the seller can unilaterally cancel that contract and kick your buyer to the curb. And here's what happens. Did you check with your buyer that they wired the EMD or delivered it? No, they said they would. You need to be checking. Because a buyer, most likely a client, is not going to know the sense of urgency that something bad can happen if they don't do it. What, their kid gets sick or they forget on the way home to do that. Or when they get home, they forget to wire it and it doesn't go out in time. Do you want them to lose their house because they didn't understand and you weren't vigilant about that deadline? No. So then let's talk about the deposit. So you have to deliver it to either the title company of the seller's choice, and that's always listed in MLS, bottom right-hand corner. is where you're gonna see who it needs to be delivered to or the check needs to be written. Usually now things are wired, money is wired. However, some people are still have paper checks. Only write one check, like every 5 weeks, and that's to my hairstylist. And I'm like, you're the only person I write a check to. She's like, I know. And I'm like, oh, what about Venmo, PayPal? Oh, no. No, she's scared of them. So I'm like, whoa, whoa, okay. So again, it is your job, your duty to make sure those things are happening. And also then on the deposit, it has to be in time to meet the law. In Kansas, it's within 5 days of the effective date. In Missouri, it's within 10 days of the effective date. And if it's a quick closing, like 10 days or less, it's cash. Then you've got to let everybody know and give them an alert. You got to I would let the office know, I'd let the title company know, especially the title company. If it's less than 10 days, I don't know if the title company can make it happen. So don't be writing a contract saying we're going to close in 8 days and you haven't checked with the title company. And also, you're not sure whether your buyer, you've got to make sure they can have cash by then. Or if they take money out of a financial account, it has to cure in their bank account. So they can't like just transfer it the day of.
I just want to share this, because some clients really literally need hand holding. So I have these clients that, get ready to list their house and, and I literally, I called them yesterday and explained to them, okay, I'll make sure you're reaching out to the lender, tell me what the process is, where are we? And then she explained to me, well, it's in a thing called underwriting. I said, okay, I just want to follow up with you, because once your seller signs the contract on the condo you're buying, I need stuff in order. So literally, and I had to go over there and help them rent a trash hauler to get the house, because this is a couple that needs handled.
Oh, yeah.
Not the husband, because the husband travels the wife that I'm working closely with. So that's who we are.
Yeah, you cannot assume everybody's doing their job and they're on task and they're on time. It's your job to just check in with people. And that doesn't mean you're gonna be like, what are you doing? You're going to professionally just check in, make sure everything's on task, that they understand what the next step is. And just because you explained it to your client in the beginning of how this process will go, please assume they remembered nothing. Nothing. Because this process, there's a lot of moving balls and they are not going to remember everything. It is up to us to keep. I tell people part of your job, Park, is going to be repeating yourself. Kind of like I do with you guys as students, repeating things until it starts to sink in. It's just what we do.
Or the underlying therapists as well.
Yeah, we are therapists, counselors, yeah, mediators. So that earnest deposit, and remember what I said, the title company cannot do the deposit unless they have a copy of the sales contract. And then you need a receipt that they received the money or the wire. And here's why. You guys know that the real estate commissions, both Kansas and Missouri, will come to a brokerage and audit files. Kind of regularly, kind of not. And they do now give you a little notice, but they pull a % of your files based on how many sales your office has had. And that's why every file has a DA number, is because that's for the state. And they just pull the DA numbers. And then they say to the brokerage, hey, we're going to come in and review these files. Now, when I was a broker, that was very stressful because you're like, oh, whose files? You don't know by the number. So I'm like, oh, please, not so-and-so. They have the messiest files in there. no, please, please, no. And one of the things they're looking for is because it's a law, did the earnest get deposited in time? And if not, you could get fined. Brokerage can get fined. Remember, you rarely get in trouble alone. If you get in trouble, we probably get in trouble. So, and it can be expensive, right? So make sure that's happening because those files can get audited. That's why we have a compliance department that's reviewing what you upload in Command. And where you guys are so fortunate is Linda is reviewing your documents, so our coaches are reviewing your documents. But sometimes you get stuff in there or don't get it in there and we don't know. So be okay. I heard Ashley say sometimes you get rejected by compliance. It's okay. There's just a lot of documents. You got to be okay with, you're not going to, something's going to be missing, or you got to go get something. Or you have to explain to compliance that in this transaction, that document is not part of the transaction because they just go over a worksheet. So I saw on GroupMe about seller's disclosures yesterday. While what is required by federal law, consumer protection law, is that a seller must disclose all material facts about the house that they know. It is not required that they use a written form. But our contracts do require it. And if it's not, then it has to be removed for the contract. So both parties can agree that there is no seller's disclosure, but that doesn't remove the seller from the obligation of saying what they know. And that goes for somebody who's flipped a house, rented it, it's an investment property, or it's a trust. You know, it's a family member's. Family members are to say what they know, even if they've never lived in the house. Like when I sold my parents' house, I'd never lived in that house, but I knew that they had worked to their septic system. So I disclosed what I knew. I didn't know all the details, but I disclosed what I was aware of. So that never excuses a seller from disclosing what they know. So any document that is spoken to in the contract can be removed if both parties agree to that. The only one that can't be removed, and you shouldn't remove, is the lead-based paint. It's a federal law. Even if it doesn't get all signed by all parties, you need to have it there and at least show that your side signed. And sometimes that'll happen. Sometimes you can't get the other side to sign something and compliance is like, what? We just want to know you did your best to try to get all the documents signed so that if the commission comes and reviews these files, shows that on our side, we did everything we can. And know that you're going to make mistakes and you're going to miss things. Be okay. I was really a little mortified when I forgot a document in a transaction when I was brand new, and I had to go back to my buyer and say, oh, you need to sign this. I thought that would make me look bad. Keep in mind, when someone goes to a title company to close and sign all of those documents, those hundreds of pages they have to sign, the title company actually has them sign a form that says, if we have missed anything, or if there are any corrections that need to be made, you are agreeing to come back. So even a title company can miss things and they know it. So be okay with that because it's going to happen. It happens to all of us. You just don't want it to happen all the time. And it'll happen less and less. Any questions about the earnest money? Comes Jocelyn? No? Okay, let's keep it going. Home warranty? Wish this would quit doing that. Come on. I got to keep my mouse over here, otherwise it keeps getting. Home warranty. If your buyer is wanting one or your seller's offering one or is negotiating the contract, it also says in the contract which licensee is responsible for putting it in place. So if you put yourself in there as a listing agent or the buyer's agent, then it's your responsibility to set it up now. Angel.
I have a question about, home warranty stuff. If a home warranty offers a discounted rate for the agents, so they can help the home warranty company, do we have to pay that, or do they, does it need to be set in a contract where the buyer pays? Because if the buyer pays it, they get a different rate.
No, they won't. They won't.
They get the
That
same-
discount is, it's not for us, it's for our clients.
Okay, so the client can pay that in advance.
Yeah, no, all of the home warranties have a discounted rate
Okay.
for buyers or sellers during a transaction. If they do not place a home warranty on the house during that time, and I think some of them even will let the buyers do one up to 30 days after closing. But if they don't, then they don't get the discount rate that is offered to us as agents to pass on to our clients. So it's already there, Angel. That's a great question. It's already there. When they renew, they won't get the discount rate. It's usually a 1 year. That's why I heard one of the home warranties will allow a buyer or seller pay 2 years at the discount rate in advance. But it will go up the next year to the regular rate and not the discount rate. Make sense? Great question.
So we need to explain to our buyers, or if our sellers is offering it to a buyer, that the buyer needs to be aware that the rate will change the following.
It most likely will change. You got a discounted rate because we're doing it. I have relationships with the home warranty companies. Also, there are things you need to tell them. And I know we had Kent Levinsky in here talking about home warranties, but you need to let them know that, like any insurance, it doesn't cover everything. It covers most things. There is a deductible. It is called a trade fee or service call fee. It's usually not too much. And they will always try to replace they will always try to repair over replace. And parts, they're going to order parts and not go to Home Depot or Lowe's to get parts. And sometimes that can take time. And that's why they got a discounted rate and why it's so affordable to have a home warranty, because they're working through suppliers that they get discounts by buying in bulk. So you've got to set that expectation. Now, one of them offers, I love this feature. One of them offers, they'll pay for somebody to stay in a hotel if their heat or air is broken. I wish I'd had that, because I had a home warranty for many years until we replaced the HVAC and all the major stuff. So didn't make sense after that. But it was when I bought one of my houses, everything was pretty old. So it was nice because on those replacements, the home warranty paid for most of it. Again, not all of it, but most of it. But I had to wait. Oh, I'll never forget one summer. It was like 98 degrees in my house with all the fans on because the air conditioning had broke in August. So I had to move in with family until they got it replaced and fixed. So understanding what home warranties are about and setting the right expectations with your clients is important. And again, a copy of that has to be sent to the lender, because the lender needs to know who's responsible for paying this. Is it going to be the buyer or the seller? And then the title company needs a copy of it to make sure that when they do the settlement statement with all the credits and debits for the two parties, that it's in the right column for the right client. So again, that's where these things are happening during the transaction. So you're disseminating paperwork throughout this whole transaction. It's just not a one and done. Any other questions about home warranty? We learned about the title policy with Scott Lynn on Tuesday. I hope you took it seriously, that it is your duty to read and review that. We had a lawsuit in this office. When I was a broker, one of our very good agents we got sued, she got sued. And it really wasn't her fault. However, the listing side, it was over easements. The seller was related to the listing agent. There was a wooded area, kind of similar to what I thought he was talking about that scenario, but it wasn't the same scenario, but very similar. They had sold the back wooded part, the sellers had, to the Department of Transportation and didn't disclose it, and the title company missed it. And the agent knew about it, the listing agent knew about it, seller knew about it, because it had only happened 16 months prior to selling their house. So it wasn't like 10 years ago and you forgot. And our agent didn't double check and make sure that a title policy had been delivered to their buyer for review. And she didn't review it at a high level either. She assumed the title company had sent a copy of the title commitment to the buyer. Do not assume that. Again, remember what I said, you are the project manager. You're the only one really who's touching everything and aware of everything from start to finish. You know, because the title company comes in and does their part. Lender comes in and does their part. But you're there from start to finish. That's why you are the project manager. So do not abdicate and say, well, I don't know. No, that is your responsibility. So what happened was, I said this, so E&O insurance kicks in when something like this happens, when there's the threat of a lawsuit. I talked to our E&O attorney. She wanted us to settle for like $10,000, the agent to settle for $10,000. And I said, oh, no. I said, when we look at levels of responsibility, the buyer's agent has the lowest level of responsibility. And I told her why. So she went back and negotiated. So our agent only paid $2,000. But I was like, absolutely not. There's not the same level of responsibility here in this. The seller, was not forthcoming. The listing agent was forthcoming, and the title company missed it. Do you see how it starts to get hairy sometimes? So that's why that awareness, and you're gonna hear, and Scott wasn't fibbing when he says, or me, when we say, a lot of agents don't look at those title commitments. I can go out this door and talk to experienced agents. Oh, no. Really? So you may be with a really good title company, but even a really good title company can miss something sometimes. And even if you don't understand on that title commitment exactly what it says, if it looks like something you don't understand or could be a red flag, it says a lien or an easement that isn't like utility easements that are normal, then you say, what is this? What is this? And make sure you're delivering all the paperwork, even when it doesn't feel like it's your job or responsibility. So Platinum Title is amazing and wonderful. And I don't just say that because they are our service partners and our in-house title. I will tell you, years ago when we replaced our old title company, decided they didn't want to be in brokerage offices anymore. They wanted to be have their own separate sites. Their receptionist was scary. She was the meanest thing. Elderly woman, she just bark at you when you come in. I mean, their level of customer service was sit. And so we asked our agents, if we could have any title company in Kansas City be our partner, who would it be? And resoundingly, they said Platinum Title. Because their customer service, it's not normal in all the good ways. I hate to make this, and do not quote me on this, even though this is recorded. Many title companies, even today, are full of cranky old white women. Am I lying?
We have a group here though. But yeah.
But it's just, yeah. No, no warm fuzzy, no. That's why it's notably different, the customer service.
Always, the bulldog is always the front desk person.
Yeah, and they're usually heavy smokers. What do you want? Half the time they're in the parking lot smoking. Okay, I know that was a generalization, but I'm not exaggerating too much.
Just.
Yes. Please.
So when we're doing research and when we sign up a client, if they find a home and we're doing our shops and all that, we have some great systems that give you the property line, we can't go by those, but there's also the city, you can go into the city.
Or the county a lot of times.
County, and they have plots, and they have, you can put in the address, and they give you the property line. Kristen is absolutely right, I sold a house in, 39th Street, cute forward neighborhood, they call it.
Yeah.
And it was the strangest thing, so I had this house, and the backyard went back. And then the fence stopped there, and then there was another fence, in this small little, like maybe the size of these two dozen put together, a little lot, that people were throwing in trash in there, so my client said, can I open this? And I said, no, because I had done the research and I found that little lot, right behind his house, was owned by somebody else. Not even the apartment building that was behind, it was privately owned. That's, and every time,
Crazy.
and my client wanted to buy it, so I reached out, and they never responded. They
Isn't
never
that weird?
said, they wanted.
You never know.
And he couldn't build his back garage, so.
'Cause
when he got ready to sell, we had to sell it without a private driveway, because he couldn't,
Couldn't go there because of he didn't have access to it and didn't have ownership.
yeah.
So that title policy is really important. Also, there are times like Scott was saying on Tuesday, there are times you're gonna wanna do a preliminary title search. You're gonna ask that of the title company. They don't charge for it. Like if you're dealing with a divorcing couple, get a preliminary title search. You don't know. Maybe one of the reasons they're getting divorced is because maybe the husband had some debts that the spouse didn't know about, that were, maybe they had a gambling problem and there are liens on the property that the spouse was not aware of, but they know some of them, and that's the reason for divorce. But there could be more. So I also would do it for if I got a seller or a listing that I knew nothing about, that they hadn't been referred to me or what have you. And I didn't feel like maybe they were totally forthcoming when I asked, do you have any liens on the property, any second mortgages, any federal tax liens, any back child support or spousal support. Now, if I felt they were evasive at all and not forthcoming, I would ask for a preliminary title search. And also you can go on MLS, like RPR will give you information on whether they have other liens on there. It'll tell you, it'll highlight at the top of the MLS page if there's any foreclosure or pre-foreclosure history on that property. It might be old history, but do your own research when you're looking at listing a property or even putting an offer in it. You can find out, because MLS, our matrix system that agents put the data in. Remember, what do I say about the data in MLS? How good is it?
Only as good as the agent.
Yeah, Connor was gonna say it. Yeah, only as good as the agent who puts it in. RPR and Realist, they're pulling from public records, like court records and that type of thing. So that's gonna have more accurate information, and those are all programs within MLS that they pay for, or you pay for with your membership that you have access to. So get familiar with those. I have in my power tools it's a congratulations, and here are, for the seller, I have one, and for the buyer of, here is your checklist to closing. Setting expectations, I have a place in there where you can put all of the dates, the timeline dates of how long the inspection period is. When do they have to have loan approval? When, all of those things, you can have that in there to remind them. And to get them ready for inspections or get them ready to handle their utilities or insurance and all of that. Those, and I would send them through as an email or, so that they were setting expectations again. Many of that much of that information I'd already talked to them about, but again, I'm assuming they remember nothing. Always. So, and it's just a nice touch to say, oh my gosh, congratulations, we're under contract. Here's what happens next. Makes your job easier too, because here's the other thing you have to be worried about. Although you'll get very good at what you explain and say to a potential buyer in a buyer presentation, you'll get really good about what you'll talk to a seller about in a listing presentation. But there are times it's not going to go according to plan, and maybe you didn't get to explain everything to them. So you relying on you to be the only purveyor of information and not have it backed up. That's why a smart plan that tells them what happens next also is a great idea, to make sure they understand. A lot of lenders have that marketing program that they put all their clients on that lets them know what's coming up next. And usually some of them have it so that the agent's copied on that too. Lovely. So think of something like that you would also do. Do not, don't rely that you did tell them everything, because you might have, something happens. Yes, and not every appointment is going to go the same with every client. Any questions on the title policy? Scotland will be back, and we'll talk about, he'll be back not next week, but the week after, to talk about the settlement statement. Let's talk about the loan application. Okay, loan application. Keep moving the loan application and fees. Check the number of days the selling agent is responsible for making certain this is done. Listing agent should track it too. Is the buyer doing what the lender needs them to do? I've seen buyers who drug their feet on submitting all the documents to the lender in a timely manner, and because of that, the lender couldn't get it to close on time, and then the buyer was mad. I'm like, what? It's because of you. And then the seller was really mad. Some people don't take it seriously, and it is cumbersome and onerous. I mean, lenders want so much documentation from our buyers, and everybody's busy. So it's really important. And remember, these are calendar days. So we're counting Saturday and Sundays. Don't be lulled into things aren't happening. That's why I meant to mention on that earnest money deposit. Remember that you might have a weekend in there. So do you need to address it in the contract and extend it? Actually, I think it's 3 days and not 2 days. I don't know why I have 2 days in here.
Close on a Friday, it's due Monday.
Yeah.
Unless you.
And you can extend it, but here's what I want you to know. If you extend it longer than the deposit time, then you have to address extend the deposit times of the EMD. Yeah, so make sure, yes, you can extend, but if it interferes with the legally required deposit date, then you have to address that in the contract and bump that out too. Get it done.
Get it done.
Get it done. Matter of fact, if it's a check, I take it from my buyer and I deliver it. Actually, I had a service. I had a delivery service and it was lovely. They'd come to my office, pick up the check, drive it across town. Cause as an agent, once you start getting busy, it made no sense for me to drive it to North Kansas City or out south. It's lovely that most EMDs are wired now. It's lovely. Lender required docs, that's what I said. Make certain this is getting done. That's why checking in with the lender, don't wait until the lender calls you during this process. You're checking in with them. Has the buyer gotten everything into you? Because I'd love to tell you, your buyers are gonna be honest with you if you check in with them, but sometimes maybe they misunderstood what the lender said they needed. And they thought they did everything and they didn't. And so these have to be done and they can't just say, oh, well, it's just not gonna close in time. Now, the seller has to agree to that. Otherwise, they could be in breach of contract if they can't meet that closing date.
Just real quick, I use Bob, so Bob has this, intro lender agent app, and he communicates with you. And I think you can add other lenders, and I'm not sure, if they'll quote me on that, but it's really cool because he can send you a message and say, hey, can you reach out to your client? I'm still waiting on this document. So he keeps you in the loop on everything that's going on.
I love that. Yeah, and that's what's so lovely about having good partners. The other thing I will tell you is you're gonna think, because I thought in the beginning, you know, it's okay that my buyer goes with any lender. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, no, it's not. You really need to be proactive about that. And so if my buyer came to me pre-approved, I mean, it's so great that you did your due diligence, Hark. I really, 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 that speaks volumes of how serious you are about buying a house. However, there is something I ask of all of my buyers, and it's this. And I would only ask this if it was a lender that I had no idea who they were, or I knew was a problem lender. There are lenders, like I said, that I can't believe this is what they do for a living, but they can't get to the closing table on time ever. Or hardly ever, or something just falls apart all the time. But I say, so is that like a rocket mortgage? That should be red flag. Hark, here's what I ask of all my buyers. I ask that you get a second opinion. Now, I know you feel good about this lender that you chose and we have this pre-approval. But here's why I ask that you get a second opinion. Two reasons. One, I want to make sure you got the best possible product, loan product for what you want to accomplish. And I want a backup plan. Meaning if for any reason you go with your lender and we're 10 days out and they're not going to make it to closing date, I know we have a backup plan and we can switch files and get to the closing table on time. Did you notice I didn't say the cheapest loan product? I said the best loan product for what you're wanting to accomplish. Because the cheapest is not always the best. Sometimes that can be a nightmare. I had to do that because here's the experience I had. Kind of funny, it wasn't at the time. I can laugh at it now. I got my first piece of business from where I used to work at my corporate office. One of my coworkers said, I want to buy a house. That was my first one. And then it grew from there. So this was the start of something really good. So I was very eager to help. And she goes, yeah. And she says, and I'm pre-approved. I'm using my brother's buddy. I can't use Uncle Bob because
Oh, wow.
Bob is a very good lender. I say, okay, I'm new. Okay, so my second or third transaction. Okay. Well, this lender, every time I call to see what's going on, he can't talk or he gets angry at me like, I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that. I'm doing that. I went to go schedule the closing, which usually agents do for their clients, help schedule those closings. And he calls back yelling at me. I'm to do that. I'm like, day of closing. I'm like, okay, I'm new. I don't know. Maybe that's the way it goes. I thought I was told that it was, I'm supposed to do that, but okay. Go to it's the day of closing. My buyer is calling me in a panic because she doesn't know how much money to bring to the closing and she's at the bank. Her lender's not answering. The title company says they don't have the information from the lender because the title company can't do a settlement statement unless they have the information from the lender. I said, I'll go to the title company, I'll go hang out and I'll let you know as soon as I know or they know. And I'm calling the lender. I pull in the parking lot, 103rd and State Line. That it was World Savings Bank and there was a Remax office in there. And we were closing at the title company right in there. I'm pulling up, another car pulls up next to me and I'm thinking, wonder if that's the lender. Because there's nobody else practically in the parking lot. I get out of the car, he gets out of the car. He looks like he just rolled out of bed, hair, wrinkled clothes. We go in and I said, oh, are you? He goes, yeah. I said, well, Julie's waiting for her final number. Well, we don't have them yet. It's because of the title company. Well, I know it's not, it's the title company, but he's blaming the title company. They don't have the settlement state, but then how much is it? She needs to know. She is at the bank waiting. And as he's standing there, he's a big giant guy. This kind of defined the whole experience with him. I'm like, biggest doofus and his fly is down. I'm like, describe that picture right there was just describing how professional and yeah, how awful he was. And after that experience, I swore to myself, I'm going to try my hardest to make sure that never happens again. And that's where, again, you're going to feel like, well, no, I can't. My buyer already came to me pre-approved. It's good. No. Again, as a project manager, you want to make certain that you're doing everything possible to keep a deal together. And you want to reduce the risk of it falling apart as much as possible. And I know a good lender will get us to the closing table most likely. Bad lender, I'm gambling. And I can't say to my client, absolutely not, Rocket Mortgage sucks.
Right here, yeah, talk to me.
Oh, they do business hours, not agent hours. They're not easily accessible, they're paper pushers. And you'll get voicemail.
And I was texting with Bob last night.
Yeah, you need someone who understands what we do, how we do it, and all of that. So that's my little story about all lenders are not created equal. Be proactive, protect your client and yourself and the transaction. Does that make sense? So have that script already in mind that compliment them that they got pre-approved, but say, here's what. I have, and I would say 90% of my clients would get a second opinion, and many times they would go with one of the lenders I recommended because it was better. I even had a lender say to my former assistant in my corporate world, tried to brainwash her and said, oh, your agent is wanting you to talk to another lender because they want to make more commission. That's all they care about. He was charging her an exorbitant amount in fees, but had her scared that no other lender could give her a loan. And I said to her, I said, it's me. You worked with me for 2 years. He had her so convinced that because, and she was a single mom and she was scraping pennies together. He goes, but Kristen, I can't have my credit pulled again and I can't. He said, I won't get another loan. He said, my lender could have saved her well over $4,000. Even showed her the numbers. She said, no, he said that's not possible.
He's a liar.
Yeah, so not all lenders are our friends or partner with agents, and you'll see some of them not wanting to give you. Remember how I say when you go to write an offer, you need to get a mortgage worksheet to know the costs that are being charged. Some lenders will not, they're not obligated to give it to you. They're obligated to give it to your client. They don't want you to have it because they don't want you to be able to shop. Because they know their fees are too high. So just know that. I thought, oh, all lenders like our agents. And then he started bad mouthing me to my former assistant. I was like, whoa, a dirty dog. I feel bad about it. Oh, yeah, it was awful. Awful.
We just had a good bit.
No, but and now we have some laws that can't happen what happened in that, meaning you can't. Yeah, I won't even go into it because it was how it used to be. A buyer could get quoted what the closing costs would be by a lender. And the day of closing, they could find out that, oh no, you gotta bring in $5,000 more. Now, when they give that final settlement, there's X amount of time that a buyer has to review it prior to closing, or you cannot close. And that's to protect no surprise fees. And now they have a percentage limit that of difference that can be from what they were first quoted to what the actual closing costs are. It wasn't in place when I was a brand new agent. A homeowner's insurance. Okay, you gotta make sure your buyer is getting quotes and talking to an insurance agent during inspections. Because if it's an older house, don't be surprised. I'm not hearing about it very often, but once in a blue moon, an insurance agent will actually want to come and see that house. And I had it happen that my buyer was buying a house in Brookside, FHA. So we did inspections and also an appraisal / inspection, right? Because FHA and VA, they also, the appraiser is going to do a quasi inspection on the condition of the house. And are there any risk elements that would cause FHA or VA not to want to insure this loan that need to be addressed prior to closing? We got past both of those hurdles. And then the insurance agent said he wanted to come see the house. He saw the electrical box that had passed the whole house inspection and the FHA appraisal and said, for insurance purposes, this has to be switched in the first 30 days of you moving in, or you can't get insurance. Or it'd be exceedingly expensive. And I had no way to negotiate with the sellers because we're past all of those windows. And so my buyer had the pleasure of having to replace the electrical box in her first 30 days of moving in the house to get decent insurance. So that's why you've got, and roofs are such a big thing right now, 15 years or older, and it may be required by the insurance company that it be replaced. They're not going to take that risk. Every time you hear a natural disaster, be worried about your home insurance. It's adding up. And last year we all felt pain with our home insurance. So that's another thing that when you're talking to a buyer, especially a first-time buyer, do they have the extra money for home insurance? Because it's more expensive than it's ever been. And know that everybody has an insurance history and every house has an insurance history. So also, insurance agents have a database in which they can look you up, Ellie, and see if you have been an insurance risk, meaning you filed lots of claims. They also can pull, if you were buying a house, they would pull on that address to see if there have been a lot of claims on that house. Either or together, that could be a reason for sky-high insurance rates. It's a risk. You would be a risk, the house is a risk, high risk. So just know that that's something that goes on that you need to be aware of because it can become an issue. Appraisal is ordered by the lender. And the appraiser is usually calling to set that up 5 days working so that the appraiser should be coming in about 5 days after your effective date. About. It just depends. Some lenders call the appraiser right away, which I prefer. And some wait until after inspections. Don't love, especially if it's FHA or VA, do not love that. But they have a mindset of, well, I don't want the buyer to pay for appraisal if the inspections come back bad. Well, I don't want them to pay. I don't want us to negotiate on inspections when I don't know what's gonna come up on the appraisal. Because the appraisal things have to be done, they are required. Where inspection items are what the buyer would like to have done. Okay, you need to make certain that, remember, the appraiser is going to make arrangements with the listing agent, not the buyer's agent. And usually the buyer's agent is not there for the appraisal and the buyer is not there usually for the appraisal. Actually, do not bother the appraiser. As a listing agent, though, you should always have a packet to give to that appraiser. And in that packet, it should have what comps did you use in pricing this home and a list of any upgrades and anything that you'd want them to take into consideration when they're doing this appraisal.
Because you're essentially like defending your price.
Yes, you're helping them too. There are good, bad, and lazy appraisers. Some will take your information and that's basically.
But he was so laid back, so like 5 minutes.
See, awesome. You're like. Some will not take your information. Some are very aloof and some though will take it and look at it. What you don't want, and the reason why I can't guarantee they'll take it, but you want to make certain that you can tell your seller, especially if it doesn't come back for the sales price, if it doesn't appraise, you want to be able to say to your seller, I was proactive. I did give the appraiser comps. Now, if it doesn't appraise, what happens? What happens if it doesn't appraise? Anybody know what the contract says?
It's no direct negotiating.
You go into a renegotiation period, just like with inspections. The 5-day period in which both parties can either come to agreement, maybe split it, or the seller can lower the price to the new appraised price. But before you do any of that, I would always ask, either as a buyer's agent or a listing agent, for a reconsideration of value. I'd first look at the appraisal and what comps did that appraiser use. And then I'm going to look at what parameters did the appraiser use. I'll give you an example. I helped an agent, one of my coaching clients, with an appraisal. It came in $14,000 less than the sales price. Not good, not good for the seller, not good for well, kind of good for the buyer, but the buyer wanted it and the seller didn't want to come down 14,000. I reviewed the appraisal and I found that the appraiser went out further than the subdivision, went out further in time than the agent had with their comps, and had even an under contract, a pending on there. What the? No. So I took his parameters and then we did a search. I was able to find 3 other comps that he did not use. 2 were spot on. One was kind of like, let's try it. It was kind of close. Let's try it. And he replaced 2 of his with the 2 that were spot on. And it changed the price in half. So it doesn't work the reconsideration doesn't work every time, but it is worth the effort. But you have to look at that, what they used as comps and figure out, did they miss something? And then you have to like argue, but nicely propose why you think these comps would be more suitable. But don't piss off an appraiser. Don't argue with them. Not a good place to go.
You hire this person.
No, it depends on the lender. Remember, the lender is the one who orders it. So you would have to ask the lender if that'd be okay. If it's an FHA loan, no. Actually, here's a little thing about FHA appraisals. If an FHA appraisal is done on a house for sale with buyer number one, and buyer number one cancels the contract or just doesn't go to close, that appraisal stays with that house for 90 days. So if another FHA buyer came with an offer within that 90 days, they would have to use that appraisal as their own. FHA and VA, I'm not sure. Because VA has some differences and they've done some changes, so that would be a really good question for a lender to ask. Have that awareness. So in those 5 days, the parties have time to renegotiate and come to terms. The buyer could pay the difference, but always check with their lender if the lender is okay with it. If they put a tiny bit down on that house, the lender might not be okay with them paying the difference because they don't have enough skin in the game for this mortgage. Does that make sense? So that's not a decision wholly on the buyer and seller. That's when you got to check with the lender. Most lenders are okay with the buyer paying the difference, but not always. That's why if you're going to use an appraisal waiver addendum to a contract and an offer, you got to check with the lender and say, hey, if we do this, is that okay? Because it may not be. Any questions about insurance or appraisals? How you guys doing on Zoom?
Good.
You doing good? Okay, good deal. All right, let's keep going. We're making some good time. Inspections. Okay, we talked about inspections last week. Did you learn a lot last week in inspections? Yeah. A lot to it. It is truly the most stressful time. It's when more deals fall apart than any other time in this contract to close process. So you need to make certain that you've got the last day of the inspection period on your calendar. And remember, it starts the next full day after signatures. The next full day is when the clock starts ticking. So if it's 10 days and you went, the effective date was yesterday, then today is your first day. You need to schedule those inspections. I like to, and always, you've heard us say this, but I'm gonna say it again, is you're gonna need to give your buyers, see, I would have done this in the buyer's presentation, in that consult, I would be giving them a list of inspectors to be doing their due diligence of who they wanted to hire. Yep. And I always put my favorite at the top, and they usually did pick him, but I gave them no less than 3 options and told them to do their research. And then I'll schedule the appointment. Because I have to be there as the buyer's agent. I should be there. If we're going to negotiate on inspections, if we didn't waive inspections, I need to understand what I'd be asking for, right? Some agents don't go to their inspections. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with it. Yeah. Yeah, I always bring extra work. I always, I bring a little cooler and I would bring beverage. And if it was a morning inspection, I brought like Danishes or donuts for my buyers and the inspector. I bring coffee if I knew their favorite coffee or whatever drink they wanted. I need snacks. I function best if I have, because my blood sugar will start dropping. So I did it for me too.
Most agents that are mamas, they bring snacks.
Yes, we do. We are snack kings and queens. For our road trip last week, our staff leadership road trip, we went to Dallas for a KW leadership conference in Dallas, and we took a van. There were 8 of us in a 12-seat van. Whew. We did well. It was long drive though. But I was the queen of snacks. Had my cooler snacks, I had frozen grapes, I had adult, cheese plates, or Lunchables, you know, those with the salami and nice cheese versus the American cheese and turkey.
That's in there.
Yeah.
I brought Luke in the other day.
The adult Lunchables. Adult
Whose
Lunchables.
whose blood is dropping here? Here you go.
But, and I also made it so that I gave my buyers things to do while the inspections were going on. I said, measure rooms. Take pictures or video because you're gonna finish.
That's agreed.
Yeah,
Make
because-
sure your rooms are like, if you need a new fridge, make sure that's space.
Do you have an oversized fridge? Make sure it's gonna fit.
Mhm.
Do you have an oversized sofa? Make sure it fits. Bring paint samples so you can kind of see what it might look like if you've already been thinking about paint. I want you dreaming about living in this house. And so I have you do that and I have you do a video because this is probably the last time you're gonna be in the house for 30 days. And while yes, you can go on MLS and look at the pictures, it doesn't show you like you might forget how many windows were in that bedroom or where was the closet in that room. So take videos. I used to before I know this kind of makes me sound so old. Well, I am, but hey. I would take my camcorder and do a whole video of the whole house and give that to my buyers so they could go back and look at their house or show it to family and friends. Yes, I did. I had a little one.
For you, young people.
I did.
This is what the camcorder looked like.
Yeah, it was like one on your, my big one was one on the shoulder, look, kind of like a machine gun on your, and then I had a little one. Because we couldn't do videos on our phone,
Yeah.
so it wasn't that long ago.
Wasn't it?
It seems just like yesterday. Okay, remember, inspections, critical deadline, the end of the inspection period. If you as the buyer's agent do not submit an inspection notice and a resolution if applicable, you have just allowed your buyer to buy that house as is without the right to cancel due to the findings of the inspection or ask for anything. How often do you think that happens? How often do you all think that happens? More often than you would think, and even very experienced agents. I've seen agents have to pay thousands of dollars to cover inspection repairs because they missed that deadline and the buyer would have probably sued them. Because they missed that deadline. I had a new agent. Loved this kid, but he was a rogue. Had high energy, came in, he's gonna conquer the world of real estate, great, never came to any training. And then, yeah, none, zero. And then, I was also the broker, and so one day he comes to me, he said, Kristen, I'm under contract and everybody's mad at me, and I'm like,
Let's see.
okay, wait, you just told me you're under contract, didn't know that, didn't know that, I'm supposed to know that. And everybody's mad. So in my brain, in my little broker brain, I'm thinking, I know what this is inspections, I already know it. But I said, tell me more. Tell me, why is everybody mad at me? He goes, I missed something by one day. I don't know what the big deal is. I missed something by one day. I said, what was that? I said, the end of the inspection period. I'm like, wow. I said, so what were the biggest findings of the inspection report? He goes, oh, it needs a new roof. And I said, are you ready to pay for a new roof or get sued? He had to pay $7,000 out of his first commission check. Luckily, the house was expensive enough, but I don't think he made but maybe $200. Or otherwise he would have gotten sued. So you do not miss that date. I got so scared because I did screw up on inspections on my very first transaction. Remember, I didn't have a mentor, nothing. So I submitted my inspection notice because we'd done our inspections, but I didn't I didn't understand or recognize that, oh, that meant that was the end of what I could ask for. And the radon reader was still in the house until the next day. Guess who didn't sleep? Because if the radon reading had come in hot, guess who was going to be paying for a mitigation system? Well, I did not sleep that night. By the grace of God, it came in below the EPA standard. But it shook me to my core that every time I had inspection deadlines, I would literally sometimes in the middle of the night go, what day is it? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I can go back to sleep. That's how much it scared the pants off of me, because I never want that to happen again. So I hope it scares you a little, because you've got to feel that fear to know the sense of urgency. Contract dates don't care if you're sick. Contract dates don't care if you forgot. Contract dates don't care if you're on vacation. They don't.
So for the inspection period, do all the negotiations have to be finished by that deadline?
No, that's a great question, Ellie. No. So what you do is that inspection period is kind of your data collection period. Now, many times, if you can get estimates on what you're finding, your buyers can get estimates, or you as a buyer's agent can get some estimates. And some inspectors can kind of ballpark some things like the replacement of the electrical box or some stuff like that, radon mitigation, those types of things. You can kind of start knowing what those cost, or the inspector might be helpful. And then after that, you submit that inspection notice, and if you're going to want to renegotiate, and remember, you were telling your buyer, we are renegotiating due to finding things that were significant enough that if you had known about the HVAC unit needing to be replaced, you would have made a different dollar offer, not our little $10 items. These are significant enough items that you would have changed your offer because you knew the foundation needed $10,000 of work. Does that make sense?
So you basically state that these are the problems you want to talk about, and then you talk about that next 5 days?
You do, well, then you're going to, in your resolution, you're going to list what you want them to do. Now, remember, how does Kristen feel about seller repairs?
I think better to ask for a concession and then do the repair yourself.
I hate them. I hate them, absolutely hate them. Now, I'm a realist. I know that some buyers are gonna want them, but ideally what Ashley said. If you didn't get your buyer's closing costs paid, apply them there first, because that keeps the most money in their pocket. And then you can also reduce the price of the house. So you can either ask for closing costs, reduction in the price of the home, or repairs, or a combination of all three or two. So it can be a combination of things. But I hate seller repairs. As a broker, I spent more time on post-closing issues of things that were not repaired or corrected correctly. So that's why you always, if you're going to have seller repairs done of any significance, you're going to tell your buyer, hey, you're going to have to pay for somebody probably to come re-inspect these. Unless you're able to negotiate what contractor they use. So remember, it could be Uncle Bob.
You guys weren't here last night, Uncle Bob played a big role with inspections.
You did. So and then during those 5 days, only 3 things can happen during the renegotiation period. Either the parties can come to agreement, or the seller can say, hey, we'll do everything the buyer wants, and then that binds the buyer to the contract. The buyer can't cancel once the seller says, I'll do everything, and signs. Or have you all looked at the back of the resolution of unacceptable conditions? If you have not, there's a box on the back And I call it the just kidding box. And that's where the buyer, Ellie, could say in those 5 days, you know what, we love this house so much. We're just kidding. We don't want anything. We'll take it as is. Because they're afraid of losing the house. Because remember, during that period of time, what could be going on that you have no knowledge of? That the listing agent and the seller do not have to disclose to you? What can go on? Anybody online? What could be going on that you have no awareness of?
We have another offer.
Backup offer. Thank you, Connor. Connor, I had a feeling you'd know that. Backup offer. And guess what? On day 6, either party can cancel a contract unilaterally, so you can get kicked to the curb by the seller because they have a better offer in the wings. And they do not have to tell you. So if you can't come to agreement and you're hitting day 5, then I'm going to tell you, you need to see first, will the seller allow an amendment to extend the renegotiation period? If they won't, red flag. Oh my God, that's like a scream from the mountain. And you're going to have to say to your buyer, how much do you love this house? Are you willing to take it as is? Because you could lose it tomorrow. We have no guarantee. How much do you love it? Have that conversation before you're in it. Talk to your buyer about this and what could happen while you're out showing them houses. That's why I loved spending all that time with my buyers, is because I could take them deeper into the process of what it looks like to buy a house. And I would have already talked to them about that stressful scenario. Don't wait until day 5 to say, oh, you got to make a big decision. You should have prepared them. That could be one of our options. And again, these are calendar days. Renegotiate, forgot, I had the slide here. This tells you exactly. You can come to agreement, no agreement, seller accepts, buyer accepts. But at the end of 5 days, it's not a hard date. Something doesn't automatically happen like the end of the inspection period, but on day 6, something could happen if you're not able to extend. Survey and title work. Surveys are rarely ever done. Lenders don't require them, but a buyer might. They're actually more expensive than appraisals. So if somebody's not certain about the property lines, or if they want to be able to put a fence in, what have you, they may want to do a survey. Again, you review the title commitment when you get it. And if you don't understand it, ask questions. That's why I will tell you, working with our in-house lender and title company, here's what's lovely about it. They have a vested interest in your success because they partner with us. And so they're okay taking you as a brand new person and holding your hand. I can't guarantee you other lenders and title companies will have that patience or desire. They may be annoyed that you don't know that you're supposed to do this or this happens next. So, but you need to ask questions. It's one of the best skills you can develop as an agent. Asking questions of your clients and of the situation. Yes, I know, we're done. Set up closing, loan approval. That's another biggie. It's in the contract. Anybody know what the dates are? When does your buyer have to have loan approval, which is the same as loan commitment? Remember, pre-approval is just a lender saying, they look pretty good. We think we're going to give them a loan. Loan commitment means that when in underwriting, they looked at all those copious documents that they required from them, and they said, yes, we're going to definitely give them a loan. They look so good. So it's either 45 days after the effective date or 5 days prior to closing that your buyer must have loan approval. Can I tell you, lenders don't have a formal way of telling you this. There's not like a formal email from a lot of them, and there's not like a certificate or anything like that. But in the contract, it says that if your buyer does not hit that threshold in time, guess what the next paragraph says in the contract? Guess what the seller could do 5 days prior to closing? They could cancel that contract. Now, that rarely happens, but I never want it to happen to any of you because you didn't watch the clock, you didn't watch the calendar. Because there could be a backup offer that would hang out that long just in case the buyer screws up. That'd be a bad one. And it almost happened when I was broker. It almost happened. Dangerously close, like the day before the deadlines. And the seller was ready. They were done with them. Okay. Let's finish this out. Utilities and repair, remember, you need to make sure all the parties, don't assume they know what to do with the utilities. It's not, your seller must keep utilities on until possession, not closing, until possession. And if it's a different date than closing, and that means if it's on a Saturday, then they're gonna probably have to pay for Sunday too, because you can't turn off most utilities on the weekend. So they can't turn it off on Friday, even if they closed on Friday, unless otherwise agreed. And then if repairs are done, this is where you would have somebody come in and review, a professional, review those repairs to make sure they were done. And you do that 5 days prior to closing, because if you do it in the walkthrough and there's something significant that wasn't repaired correctly or at all, you have no time to redress that. And it can get very, very ugly and messy. And then the walkthrough is that day, a day or two before your buyer closes to see if the house is the same condition and make sure like the same appliances are in the house that were. I've seen them switched out. I've seen them seller just said, oh, but they're no, when we went under contract, that's what we went under contract with. That is to stay with the house unless other arrangements were made in the contract. So you've got to check those things, but know that the seller might not be all the way moved out at all. So, okay. Review the closing statement and we'll talk about that with Scott Lynn. Any questions? Does this help? There's a lot more information in the student manual. You learned something? Good stuff? Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so I have a quick
Thanks, you
question.
guys. Thanks, everybody online. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Okay.
Bye.